This is a Groovy Boys production.
Hey guys, I'm your host, Mason Baugh, and welcome to The Lookup. I'm joined here by my co-host, Jackson Phelps, and my producer, Anthony Marti. Today we have a very special guest. He's a journalist and Kansas City Chiefs film analyst for The Athletic, a co-host of the Times Ours podcast, a pastor, and the assistant county attorney in Hubbard County, Minnesota. What a resume, Seth Keysor.
I'm a man of many hats, apparently.
You are a man of many hats. So kind of going off of that and like explaining all your careers and everything,
Sure.
how did you pursue multiple careers in so different fields? Because most people spend their life dedicated to, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a lawyer, but you have, skills in journalism and you preach and everything and you're a lawyer. So how did you do that when you were growing up?
I find if you do everything at a mediocre level, you can do a lot of things. Jokes aside, I mean, it's all just a matter of time management for the most part. And you're all much, much, much younger than I am. And so the advice I'll give you guys, if you marry the right woman, everything else kind of just falls into place with how easy things become. But it's just a matter of just managing time, figuring out what the goals are, and then saying, well, what can I do that no one else is doing? And what no one else is willing to do. So I don't know, an example early on in my career with the film analyst stuff, I realized that I was willing to chart every single snap of every single game of an interior offensive lineman. And people say they want to do that, but in like the third or fourth hour, they don't. And so if you're willing to do the things no one else is willing to do, you're usually able to find some success if you grind hard enough and long enough.
Awesome. So you have such a complicated, work schedule, I'm sure. So what is your schedule like? Because I know like your full-time job is probably being an attorney, but
Sure.
what is a day in Seth Keysor's life like?
Sure. Well, a lot of it depends on how many hearings I have that day. There are days as a lawyer where you don't have hearings, and then your schedule opens up a little bit. I've got a great boss who appreciates what I do in terms of stuff that's non-lawyer related, and he lets me kind of set my own schedule and do my own thing, which is a really underrated thing if you can find a boss who's willing to do that, as long as you get the job done.
Right.
But my average day, I mean, I get up and help get the kids up and say hi to my wife, take off, go to work, and I spend my times that I could be taking breaks from lawyering, doing Chiefs related stuff or ministry related stuff. And that's really, you talk about finding inefficiencies in your day. Most of us spend a little time, Twitter, Facebook, just sitting there playing a video game on their phone, whatever. I usually spend those times working, and you find those little inefficiencies and you make them your own.
Right. Okay.
So Seth, I know you have like going off of that big schedule thing. How do you manage like deadlines and sometimes stressful moments and all that big schedule rush and stuff?
Poorly, usually. But generally speaking, what I try to do is have as few hard deadlines as possible. And I try to instead give myself a series of soft deadlines, which by soft deadline, I mean, if I have something that I know for a fact, absolutely 100% has to be done by, I don't know, Wednesday at noon, right? I'll give myself a soft deadline of Monday at 5. And I treat those soft deadlines as important rather than just blowing them off. And so what happens is my stress level gets raised as I approach that soft deadline. It's kind of like giving yourself a cushion with your checking account. If you start to get stressed out when it gets down to $100, you probably won't get under $100. And I learned that when we had to save up to be poor. We just, you get stressed out about the thing that won't critically affect you. And so that's how I manage deadlines. I make sure that they're not things that can actually hurt me, even if I miss it by a little bit.
Okay, so I know you best from, talking about the Chiefs, especially because I'm a fan of 810, which made me a fan of Joshua Brisco, which then made me a fan of you because of the Times Ours podcast.
Oh, sure.
And so I mainly know you from your film analysis and stuff. I've read a few articles and everything. So as a film analyst, you have very, very high football IQ. So how did you develop that as you were growing up?
Well, this is something I admit to people readily. I didn't play football growing up. I played baseball and basketball primarily. I was always a really big Chiefs fan. Yeah, I was always a really big Chiefs fan. And basically what ended up happening is I started contributing for Arrowhead Pride back in about 2009, 2010. And while I was doing that, um, this is like the Matt Castle era, et cetera. And some of the things that I thought I knew about football, I discovered didn't play out to be true. And something that I learned from Matt Castle, I thought after 2010, I was like, oh, maybe he's the guy.
Right.
Maybe, because I hadn't really learned anything beyond basic box score analysis. And after, he flamed out, I remember thinking to myself, how was I so wrong?
Yeah.
And I started realizing just how little I actually knew about the game in terms of what's really going on every snap. And so what I did is I just set out to know more. And what I do for everything, including now, because there's so many people that just know so much more than I do. I think I know a lot until I see like Jeff Schwartz and Ted Wynn talking football on Twitter. And I think, wow, I don't know anything. What I tend to do is I set off asking myself, what question am I trying to answer? So as an example, when the Chiefs were looking at various quarterbacks prior to the 2017 draft, Mahomes was one of the ones they were looking at. And I knew one of the things people said about him is his footwork is bad. And so he's undraftable. And so what I asked myself, you just start with these questions. What are the assumptions inherent in that? Well, the assumption is if your footwork's bad, you're not accurate. Well, let's find out if Patrick Mahomes is accurate. So I charted every snap for his accuracy. You just ask yourself what the question is you're really asking, and then set out to find out how to find the answer. And fortunately, we live in an age where, thanks to YouTube and a lot of analysts at The Athletic, some of my colleagues, and just everywhere out there, there's a lot of resources that allow you to learn these things without even having played the sport. I don't need to have played offensive line to know what a good punch looks like versus a guy lunging, right?
Yeah.
I can have someone smarter than me show me what it looks like. And that's just what I've done every step of the way. Understanding what I don't know and what my limitations are has allowed me to continue to learn.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay.
I actually have a
Going
question.
off.
I have a question real quick. Also, kind of backpedaling. You said you played basketball. I think the real question all the listeners want to hear is, can you dunk?
I'm 5'10" on my best day, and I'm a quarter Japanese white dude from central Minnesota. So the answer is no. Not on my best day. When I played, I was a very ground bound point guard who did not, even on my best day, I couldn't jump much.
Round one point guard. That's funny.
So going off of Mason's question about all the football stuff, you're from Minnesota. How are you a Chiefs fan, like a big Chiefs fan?
Sure. When I was approximately 8 or 9 years old during the Joe Montana era, my family lived down in the Kansas City area where my dad attended seminary, and he kind of adopted the Chiefs as his team because he's a big Vikings fan. And at the time, there's no direct TV, there's no whatever. You could only watch the locally shown games. So he kind of adopted the Chiefs because he liked Joe Montana. He respected Marty and Marcus Allen. And so that was the team that we'd watch. And I very distinctly remember we're talking the 1994 season, not the 93 season, Joe Montana's comeback at Mile High Stadium against the Broncos. One of the greatest games. I've written about it multiple times. There's a whole generation of Chiefs fans approximately my age that became fans that night. And I think you're going to have people with similar stories about Patrick Mahomes in the future. And so I was just hooked from there on. So even when we moved back to the North Dakota, Minnesota area, I stayed hooked on the Chiefs. And of course, now I'm very glad I did. My dad didn't fight me on it. He'd seen enough heartbreak as a Vikings fan that he knew it wasn't a bad thing if I moved on to another team.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. With you being a huge Chiefs fan and everything, I mean, you, Joshua Brisco, who is was a guest on our show, and Nate Taylor.
I'm so sorry. Oh.
I think we mentioned you in some capacity. I forgot what. I think it might have been after the show, but yeah. So you have Joshua Brisco, Nate Taylor on the show, and your guys' chemistry during your show is insane. You guys. Sometimes, like when I first started listening, the only person's voice that I recognized was Joshua Brisco, and I thought you guys were all the same person for a good week. It's like I don't. Your voices are kind of similar, and your guys' sense of humor and your personalities, clash so well. Now I understand like the differences and little inside jokes of your show. So, what is it like hosting that show with so much chemistry and there's so many laughs during it while also being serious? You guys are also very smart.
Oh, well, I mean, Josh and I just kind of tag along for the ride saying ridiculous things. It's so much fun. The great thing about that show, and a reason that I hope to always continue it, no matter what happens in terms of, the doing my own website, doing whatever it is that I do, is Josh and Nate and I are all genuinely friends.
Yeah.
We anytime I'm in Kansas City, we try to get together. They talk outside of the show, and you can't. I mean, I guess you can fake that. Some people who are really good can, but generally speaking, most people can't fake that sort of thing. We
Yeah.
genuinely like each other. And in addition to that, we have very different backgrounds. And I mean, we're kind of various ages. I'm a little older than Nate, who's a little older than Josh.
Mhm.
And we have different life experiences and different ways of viewing the world in addition to the way that we view the game. And it allows us to occasionally disagree, like when
Yeah.
Josh is wrong and I'm right and we disagree. And so that really, it just adds to the fun, like people that just don't take themselves too seriously. And that's such a key thing. If you even added one person to that podcast who took themselves too seriously, we couldn't joke around like we do. And so it's the most fun thing that I do related to this job. I'd absolutely do it for free.
That's awesome.
Nice.
That's awesome. Your podcast is hilarious. I remember one of my favorite bits was when the Chiefs did that like voting campaign thing, and you guys were talking about like the Puff Daddy like vote or die campaign.
Yes.
It's hilarious.
I don't know I don't know how many of you guys would be familiar with that, but it was one of the funniest South Park episodes I've ever seen in my life. And it's so, as usual, they took it about 20 steps too far. But yeah, we just have a lot of fun. We do have similar senses of humor. And we kind of are all waiting with bated breath to see which one of us is going to cross the line any given episode and like, call out a Hall of Fame quarterback or say something about Clark Hunt that maybe we shouldn't have said because he could buy
Yeah.
and sell us 20 times over. And so that's half the fun, is just the horror of waiting to see who's going to say something stupid.
That's yeah, I love that. So at the half end part of our show, we have a few quick questions. And
Sure.
talking about time czars, who would you take in a fight, Joshua Brisco or Nate Taylor?
I love Josh and I love Nate. They've lived their lives a little bit differently than I have, and we've talked about this. They don't want the smoke. They to say how the kids say it. They've lived very differently than I have. They went to school to become journalists. I learned how to live in the oil patch in eastern Montana. We're just very different people.
Right.
And so either one of them I'm very comfortable with. Although at this point it would need to be over in about 30 seconds or I'd be out of gas. So I'm not in as good a shape as I used to be.
I also have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
In your opinion, what is an underrated Chiefs offseason move? Not like Patrick Mahomes or Chris Jones. Like, what do you think's a good underrated offseason?
Man, the Chiefs have done so many things wonderfully this offseason. It's almost impossible to overstate. I mean, the way a colleague of mine who does radio over in St. Louis, Brandon Kiley, phrased it, he said, Veach is kind of pitching a shutout. I think if we're going to go recent, I would say, and I never say his name correctly, Kelechi Osemele, signing him as a guard. I really liked his film that I looked at. I think he's going to help. And honestly, I'm surprised he was a free agent based on the work he did with the Jets before going down with an injury there. I think that was a really good move. I think keeping Bashad Breeland around is going to really pay dividends. And if we're going to go with something underrated, probably nationally, but I think Chiefs fans might, if anything, overrate it a little bit. Keeping around Mike Pennell on the interior was an excellent addition. It's not a coincidence that the defense did play significantly better once he arrived. Now, part of that was the increased health of Chris Jones, Frank Clark, and the defense kind of coming together. But he really did help shore things up along the interior. Big, strong presence, very difficult to move. And he can get after the passer a little bit too.
Okay. Are you? I know you're a fan of the Chiefs, so I thought of this when you said Brovich is pitching a shutout. Are you a Royals fan too?
I was growing up. But I was the exact wrong age when the strike in the mid '90s happened,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it just killed my love for baseball, which
Mm.
isn't fair to the players because they had legitimate grievances. But
Yeah.
at the time I was young, and so I just stopped watching, and I never really picked it back up. It's kind of, I used to be a huge NBA fan until Jordan retired. And like a lot of people my age, it was just tough to care after that. And so
Yeah.
I was cheering for them in their World Series run, in large part because so many people I care about were so happy.
Yeah. It's not the best time to be a Royals fan right now, so I think,
No.
I think you're okay.
Hey,
we
they
have a
got
winning
that World
streak.
Series. They
We
got
do-
that World Series.
They did. And we do have a winning streak right now. We have got like 4 in a row, right?
Yep.
After
4 in a row.
losing. Yeah.
Yeah, we
That's-
have the Reds tonight.
That's
All
what
right.
happens when Patrick Mahomes buys an interest in your team. Just everything the man
Exactly.
touches turns into gold.
Exactly.
They need to put him in the bullpen. They need to use him.
See, I'm telling you, I like the idea in theory, but I have this running fear, and I think we talked about it on Times Ours. I have this running fear that Mahomes is so good that he's like going to reach this transcendent level in like 2 years where he's like, guys, I've beaten football. There's nothing left. It's like, it's like he's done 100% of the side missions. He's beaten the game, and he says, "Yep, so I'm just gonna go play baseball for a while."
Yeah, he just pulls a Michael Jordan. Yeah, I'm gonna go play baseball, and then I'll come back to football later. It's like okay. This new quarter, like Drew
He'll come
Lock or
home-
somebody, he's
he'll-
like, oh, he's doing
He
too
just-
good.
he-
We gotta go get him.
He's got bored. He's got bored, so he's going to do another thing to do.
Yeah.
It's a genuine fear I have. He's too good. And
Yeah.
so I don't know. We don't want to tempt him. So we don't want him in the bullpen. We'll let him sit in the owner's box,
Okay.
Eat caviar and do things like that.
So at the end of our show, we have a recurring segment every episode called the wheel. And what the wheel is we customize a wheel for our guests. So with sports, with sports and radio hosts and everything, what we've been doing is I have 32 NFL teams on this wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I spin the wheel, and whichever team, you have to name 5 players from that team. Okay.
Oh man. Oh, it's gonna be great when I fail this.
Yeah, and you can keep going up. So like you name 5, and you're like, oh, I can name 10. You can if you would like to keep going up.
It's going to wildly depend on what team it is.
Yeah, and if there's a team like our last 2, I'll share my screen here. The last 2 were like somewhat easy teams. I'd say they were the 49ers and the Ravens for Josh Brisco and Soren Petro.
Okay.
So if you get a team where you're like, I know I'm not gonna be able to name, like the Jaguars or something, like just using that as an example, you don't have to name 10 players from the Jaguars.
We just hope we do a little bit
Horrible.
better than Josh Briscoe, who was unaware of Nick Bosa's
I bet you can't even name
existence.
10 fans from the Jaguars because they don't have them.
Well, yeah, as long as I beat, who did Josh have?
49ers.
How many did he get?
9 out of 10. He forgot Nick Bosa, and I give him crap about it on Twitter every
He
few
forgot
days.
about Nick Bosa?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not going to talk smack until I see how I do here.
Okay. All right, I'm going to spin the wheel. We got a brand new wheel. Oh, my God, the sound. Oh, my God, it's so loud. Los Angeles Rams. Oh, my
Oh.
God.
See, man, the Rams, I'll be honest, that's less than easy for me.
Okay.
But I'll try to name off a few here. Obviously Aaron Donald.
Yep.
Obviously Jared Goff.
Yep.
Oh my God, this is going to be so difficult. Obviously Cooper Kupp. So those are 3 that I've got so far. Oh man, hold on. Obviously, they still have Brockers.
Yeah.
Michael Brockers. Oh man, oh my God, I got to do better than Josh. This is terrible. Like 2 years ago, I would have known so many people on there now. Because the first thing that I thought, of course, was like, oh well, Todd Gurley. No, wait, that ain't right.
Yeah.
Oh, let me think.
To be fair, this is the Rams, and Josh
Exactly.
Briscoe had the team that he had to cover. We played in the Super Bowl. he
That's
didn't
very
get 10.
true. That's very true. I think Whitworth is still there along the line.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Man,
You're getting bonus points now.
Oh yeah, that's me. I man, that's I gotta tell you, I think I think they signed Hill, Troy Hill, but I
Let me do
don't
some
I
research.
I might be that I know. Oh, they got that big tight end Tyler Higbee, and I'm out. I think.
All right, that's 6.
All right.
Oh gosh.
Quote while you're ahead. I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, no joke. I'm just gonna start saying thing like Sam Jones and hope
Yeah.
that that's somehow correct.
Sam Jones, that's funny. I'm waiting for the day that we get, because the three teams that have been spun on the wheel are pretty like major teams that have had Super Bowl at least in the last few years, like or like playoff contention, like Ravens, 49ers, Rams. So I feel like it's just a ticking time bomb until we get like the Giants, and it's like who plays on the
You know,
Giants?
the
Exactly.
Giants. I might have done better with the Giants, honest to God. Well, no,
Oh, the
maybe not.
Jets.
But yeah, the Rams, they've gone from serious contender to kind of toiling in anonymity very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Which
agreed.
that's what happens when you pay a quarterback you shouldn't pay.
Yeah, he's not good.
Right.
Well, we have our
Yeah.
last question that we ask after the ending of every show.
Sure.
We are called the Look Up. So what we do is we interview people we look up to. So Seth, congratulations, you're one of the people we look up to.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I hope you guys find a chance to shoot higher at some point in terms of role models. But
Yeah,
I do
for sure.
appreciate that. I think it's cool what you guys are doing.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So like the last question we have is that to the other people in the world that do look up to you, other people that think you're awesome like we do, what do you have to say to them? Anything. It can be anything, like something inspirational. It could just be like you're cool.
Sure.
It could be whatever. What would you say to the people that look up to you?
I suppose, we already talked about work context stuff at the very beginning of all this, in terms of, ways of success. I always
Right.
have people asking me how to succeed in the sports industry. And for one thing, it's hard because there's a lot of people willing to do it for free, but it's just, you find a niche, you work hard at it, be willing to do stuff that no one else is willing to do, and understand that that's what it takes. I often have people that try to enter the business that will email me after 6 months and say I feel like I'm not getting anywhere, and my response is always, guys, I wrote for free for 4 years
Yeah.
before any kind of progress made, and I'm fortunate enough that I obviously have a career that's elsewhere. I guess I'll say this, in and it seems like forever from now, I promise it's not. No one is going to care what you did in terms of work and how good you were at it in 20, 30, 40 years. No one's going to care about
Right.
that. People are going to care whether or not you were kind to them, and that's all anyone's going to really remember about you. So that's just something to keep in mind. Most people that I talk to that have anything nice to say about me at all, they might say something nice about the analysis or that kind of thing. But what I really want is to be someone who, unlike some people in the sports industry, I want to be kind to people and hopefully leave the world a little bit
Right.
better. So that would be my thing, is don't focus too much on what you're doing. Maybe focus a little more on how you're doing it.
I appreciate that. I think you definitely provide that, that don't take yourself too seriously. You're very comedic on your show, and then you're very in depth with your articles and things, and it kind of gives people an escape from whatever, and that can, definitely contributes to your fans' happiness and, fans of the Athletics' happiness and just everything like that.
I hope so. That's the goal.
All right, man. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you. so much.
Thank you for coming on, Seth. This has been The Lookup, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Peace.
This is a Groovy Boys production.